It was just the most happiest time I've ever been. It felt like I was on drugs, but I wasn't on drugs.
One way that helps me, and with all kinds of discrimination,
I think my actions made me appreciate how fortunate I am.
In February 2021, Mohammed Belal, a consultant urological surgeon, was hit by a falling tree when out cycling with a friend, resulting in a spinal cord injury. Whilst he was in hospital during the COVID-19 pandemic, his wife Elizabeth, a consultant perinatal clinical psychologist, had the house renovated to be made accessible, as well as looking after their 3 children. In November 2022, with Elizabeth's support, Mo returned to work as a surgeon using a hydraulic-powered wheelchair that allows him to stand and shift position, the first in the UK to practice surgery after paralysis. As a couple, they remain remarkably resilient with strong links to their faith and community. But is that always possible when navigating life with a spinal cord injury? So, Mo, you probably don't remember me, but we were in rehab actually
I remember that.
time.
I do remember.
You do?
Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah. I mean, it was quite a challenging time to be in rehab during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right.
You're a Samuel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Not being able to have it, because you've got children as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right.
So not being able to have, because I've got a little one as well.
Yeah.
And she was like 1 at the time of my injury, so it was really difficult to not be able to see her, because you've got 3 children, haven't you?
That's right, yeah.
So what was it like for you when you came home and being able to be back with the family?
Yeah, so they allowed me special dispensation before my second operation to allow me to see them.
Yeah.
So I did manage to see them when they were there.
Okay, that's
So you were meant to be coming home.
Yeah, I was meant to be coming home. Then
And
I
we
had to have
found out the
second
day
operation.
before he was meant to be coming home that he'd needed a second surgery. And it was
Oh,
going
wow.
to be in for a lot
So
longer.
it worked out fine.
But what was it like for the children and for yourself, though, if you're kind of, getting everything ready, doing all the preparation for him to come, and then it's not coming, and how did you manage your expectations and the children's?
I think that was the most tricky thing, is the unknown, because when you know, you can kind of prepare them and so on. So we tried to do that, but then the thing that you knew wouldn't happen either. So, and I think the hardest bit was probably, like, we had Eid when you were still in hospital, and Miriam's birthday as well. I think she found that really difficult. But yeah, we managed the best that we could in terms of, I mean, I suppose at the time, because it was locked down, the kids couldn't visit. And I guess for the kids, it was quite a long time that you were away from home, and you changed, you looked different and everything. So for them, the first time they'd seen their dad after he'd had his injury, they were on their own, which just seemed a bit inhumane. But fortunately, he's ridiculously cheerful. So
Yeah, I mean, I kind of realised that first interaction will determine the rest of the relationship. So I kept it very positive. I was a bit nervous because I knew I was going to be a bit emotional, but actually I managed to control my emotions. And so it was just a fun visit. And that kind of defined the rest of the relationship. And so it's kind of, lead by example. I think, and I'm obviously the leader with the children. And so I think it's really important to set that out at the beginning. And so, and actually, I think that's made it much easier for them, much easier for me. But we would just always have a laugh and a joke about things.
Yeah, keep things positive.
Yeah, and always a joke about my paralysis. So I was like, look, the paralyzed guy needs some help. So it doesn't become a big thing. And so I think with children, the energies go to and fro. If you're emotional, the children become emotional. If you're fine, they're going to be fine. And so, I think that first meeting was important. And so I knew I had to sort of, be positive about it, because that will determine the rest of the relationship.
You were well known, actually, in rehab for your positive attitude. I remember people, have you spoken to Mo? He's so positive. He's got such an incredible attitude. And I think, we can look at the positivity and acknowledge all of that. And maybe we'll ask a little bit more about how you maintain that positivity. But surely you had those moments where you weren't feeling quite so positive. So what's it like when you don't have to put that mask on?
Yeah, I think a couple of times were very difficult, probably were a couple of days after, when the spinal surgeon, neurosurgeon came and they started telling me the story. There's one guy once upon a time, after 2 years. It was that kind of realization then. Because I'm always an eternally optimistic guy. I thought, okay, I'm paralyzed. It'll be a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, and I'll be back. As all paralyzed people do, actually, because you have that kind of hope you're going to start walking again. And that was kind of, that hit hard. But actually, I kind of looked at it in a different way. I was like, look, all I need to do is extend my journey, not by weeks or months, but by years. No one can determine what's going to happen to me in 2 years' time or 4 years' time or 5 years' time. And actually that took the pressure off, and that was helpful. And so it was trying to, I think with those sort of moments, you've got to sort of dig deep, and you've got to say to yourself, look, let me think about what's positive in this situation. And that's why I did. I just focused on the positive. And so I kind of almost feel like what I did was I just said, look, I'm just going to look forward. I'm not going to think about the past. I'm not going to think about what it was like before. It's almost like a tunnel vision, because I knew that I think the first bit is probably a very hard bit in the hospital, and then the rehab and stuff is actually a very, very challenging bit. And so each time I feel negative or I'm sad, I'm saying it's okay to be sad, but tomorrow's a new day. So I always draw a line in it. I say, look, tomorrow you're going to be feeling much better. Yeah. And it's like a schema. Like sometimes you feel down, and that's okay. It's a normal human emotion. You embrace it for the day. You say, that's fine. But tomorrow when I wake up, it's going to be different.
Yeah, so it's about allowing rather than bypassing,
exactly.
accepting.
Yeah.
Many people who sustain a spinal injury, they get to live through blissful ignorance of and go through the grieving process because they have no knowledge of spinal cord injury. But through your role, your job, you were burdened with that knowledge. Did that influence, or how did that influence how you coped?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fair bit of knowledge, but in a way I had to kind of say to myself, look, I know all that knowledge, but I'm going to actually park over there. I'm just going to be the patient, because it's easy to take the patient role, because that's where I kind of realized, the difference between a patient or being a doctor, because I knew all the stuff. And the funny thing is, having spent so many years looking after patients with spinal cord injury, patients in wheelchairs and so on, you think you know what they're going through, but you have no idea. I say to people, look, I remember teaching at a spinal injuries course for urology with a friend of mine, actually paradoxically in Stanmore, a number of years ago before my accident. And we were talking, and we were both like, yeah, we could live with paraplegia, but we couldn't live with tetraplegia. So I say to him now, it's way harder. Like, it's way harder than I thought it was going to be. And that's when I thought I knew what was going on. And so it's a thing that keeps on giving. Yeah. And there's so many different aspects to it. And I think the thing about spinal cord injuries, each spinal cord injury is different. Yeah, there's different characteristics, different problems, different things. And so in a way, embracing being a patient was helpful, because I think, for me, uncertainty was helpful, because the nice thing was they always said to me it was early days. So actually that gives you hope. And actually you need hope. It's not false hope, but I think in that first stage, I think most people with spinal cord injuries think they're going to walk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all think, look, I'm going to be that one out of 100 who's going to walk. Yeah, forget the other 99. I'm going to be the one. Yeah, but I think that's what gets
really
you.
Important.
Yeah.
And I think medical professionals often confuse hope with denial, and assume that they just haven't figured it out yet. And they'll sometimes try and squash the hope, which just seems really cruel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd seen that already in my work, because I'm a psychologist. I used to work with acutely unwell babies in neonatal units, and I saw the parents a hope, and I realised this is like really normal. Actually, so if you have kids, for example, in Birmingham, we have this ridiculous 11+ thing where they do a grammar test, right? And only like 10% of them pass, and the whole city think that's going to be their kid. Even if their kid's at the bottom of the class, they're still like, no, my kid's going to pass, yeah, because you think that, like, you have a belief and you think you can beat the system, right? So it doesn't matter that someone tells you you've got a 5% chance of walking again. You're like, in your head, you're like, yeah, but that's me though. I'm that 5%. But that's what keeps you going in the early days, until you understand that life is broader than that, and life is certainly not just about walking, and it's not even about recovery. It's about so much more. So I think hope is misunderstood, and I think it's absolutely fine, because I think for you and even for me, it's not like at any point we didn't know what the statistics really were. Like, I think because of our training, we knew it from the beginning.
Sure, but it's quite interesting. You were trying to pin them down.
Yeah, you see,
But
so
I wasn't-
I like you like uncertainty, and I need certainty.
She needs certainty.
I don't
So
like-
uncertainty is good. So I think, hope is an inherent part of the human spirit. Because look, if you think about it, we all celebrate our birthdays. It's actually technically one less year of our lives. So we're always inherently positive. And so I always sort of feedback to medics and say communication is really important and how you phrase it. Instead of saying you're never going to walk, you can say it's unlikely. But even though, it's the same message, even if you got, say, Asia A spinal cord injury, it's not 0%, it's like 1 to 2%. So it's not zero. And so the way you communicate to people is really important. And sitting on the other side, the problem with the medics is, and that's what I've learned on the other side, is about communication. Like, people take time to come to terms with things. And as Elizabeth kindly pointed out, there's no point keeping on hitting him with the sledgehammer saying, he's in denial, I need to keep on telling him. Of course they know. Yeah, of course they know. They're just hanging in there for some hope that things will get better, because I think that's really important. And I remember reading this there's this terrible study they did with rats, and they put these rats in water. And then after about 15 minutes, the rats gave up and sank and died. So the terrible people repeated the experiment. And this time at 13 minutes, they took the rats out for a couple of minutes and they put the rats back in. And the rats didn't just start swimming for minutes, they swam for hours because they thought they were going to be saved. And that's what hope can do. It allow you to push and push and push. And that's what I've used. I still have hope I'm going to walk, but I've used that energy to keep on, pushing on my health, on doing rehabilitation myself, because I think
that's the key, though. And that's where people get stuck.
Yeah.
Hope is really useful as long as your only focus doesn't become recovery. And you do see people, don't you, online who are just looking for the next magic cure, as if that will make their life back to how it was. But you have to, eventually what you learn to do is realise that you have a new life. And even if you're still hoping for some kind of possible future that may never happen, you're living in the moment as well. And so I think for me, it's being able to appreciate what we've got now and actually what we've learned about the world and about ourselves and about our characters and our abilities to live a better life now alongside the hope. Because otherwise people just, they get this tunnel vision and they're not happy and they're not appreciating what they've got and all the blessings they might have around them.
Yeah,
I think that having that support system in place, because as you say, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Bowels, bladder, sexual dysfunction,
Yeah.
all these things that it affects relationships, it affects confidence. Having that support system in place, which you seem to have in abundance, which is fantastic. How did those intricacies of spinal cord injury impact the relationship that had to be reformed after you were discharged?
Yeah, I mean, I think you had these sort of phases, don't you, in that journey at the beginning of the accident, the sort of the inpatient care, and then the rehab. You're right, there's that big transition when you're leaving the hospital to come home. And I still remember being driven, and I couldn't even tolerate being on the cushion in the car because we had to stop. Because I just couldn't, I had a lot of pain and so on. I remember, you're desperate to go home, but there's that fear of the unknown that you kind of feel like, what's going to happen when you get home. And so I still remember coming home and the guy leaving, and that kind of feeling, this is it now, after that sort of transition. And to be fair, actually, weirdly, for me, that first month, I can't describe to you how happy I was. It was just the most happiest time I've ever been. It felt like I was on drugs, but I wasn't on drugs because, it was on ecstasy, but because I was so happy to be home, to be with the family. But I think it was really hard for my wife. And I think it was very hard for me also to sort of accept. And I think my wife declined any help. She said, I'm going to do it myself. And I was trying to persuade her, maybe we need some help. And she's like, no, and so then it became, and I had this brace on, and I had to have this brace on at all times, apart from when I was lying flat, which meant I really couldn't do anything. And I literally couldn't do anything. But the nice thing was that, there's little things that made a difference. So on the bed, we've got slats. We used to have slats on the top, so you could grab the slats and turn over. And that was actually from the SIA person, wasn't it?
I think I may have been chatted to you. I'm pretty sure.
It might have been. But actually, it was those little practical things that kind of made the difference. But then I got home, and we had two doors, and there's a step between the two doors, and there's another step. So actually, I couldn't even get out, and so we had to get these ramps to get out. And so, there's so much things to do. And I think it was kind of like, I kind of said to myself, look, you just take a day at a time, and I think that's the key thing. Is what I found is people put pressure on themselves. Yeah, if you climb the highest mountain, it all starts with the first step and the next step. And that's all life is. You just got to enjoy that day that you're in, and then do not think too much ahead, because no one can determine the future. And I think that kind of helped. But certainly I remember that July, August. And I was like, look, and I persuaded my wife to get in the car. Do you remember we went to Ali's sports day as well?
The day after you got home.
I was like, look.
Wow.
I was like, look, I'm going to push myself. I mean, it was a real struggle getting in and a struggle getting out with the spinal board and stuff. But I was like, look, I'm just going to, I think what happens is things become psychological, don't they? If you don't do something, it can build up in your mind. I was like, look, and there was that constant pushing yourself out of that comfort zone. And so then I started pushing myself around the park nearby, but I think I probably overdid my shoulders. And after a month, I was like,
timing yourself.
And I was like, okay, I think I'm just overdoing it. But it was that kind of, I think the thing was, time is important, but also I think having a structure is important. And I think that's one of the things I kind of learned in the initial thing was. But over to you, that first month, it must have been very tough for you.
So I remember you coming home, and I was actually following you I was stalking him on Find My Friends, because I didn't actually, until he was at least on the M40, I did not believe he was coming home, because this is about the third or fourth time that they said he was going to be coming home. So I was waiting in the house, and I think normally you have the hospital come out, the rehab come out and check the house is ready, and we had none of that because we were too far away and it was COVID. So they were literally like, oh, don't worry, we'll check when we get there. What if so I was just told, because I'd done some adaptions, but they were very hurried because we didn't have much time, and obviously I wanted him to come straight home. So I was like, is he actually going to get through the door? Is he going to get through the door into the bathroom? Is he going to be able to transfer to the bed? Is the bed height? All of those kind of questions. And it was a bit like when they left, they just could have brought him in, and then he made me make them lunch. So I give him some lunch, and then he left. And then it was a bit, when you bring your first baby home and you're like, oh my God, I've not got an instruction manual. It felt not that you were the baby, but that we didn't have neither of us had the instruction manual.
Sure.
And that was a tiny bit scary, but there was two things going on. One was that it was like we'd been away from each other for so long that it was like restarting a relationship. It was so lovely to be able to spend time together and really healing just to have him home rather than somewhere else. And I think it was really powerful for the kids as well, because he was very different. Like, this had changed him, and he was much more aware of what was important, because when you're taken away from everything and you're in a shared hospital room with 3 other snoring men, you and your dignity is gone, everything's gone, and you've got pain. The things that are important suddenly become much more clear, don't they? And so you really valued time with the family in a way that maybe you hadn't as much before.
Yeah,
and the kids felt that, and I felt that. But there was also it was just crazily busy, because I was trying to carry on working and also helping him out. And I'd literally just get onto the computer and hear my name called immediately. And so there was a lot of trying to be in 2 places at the same time.
So what about for you, when someone goes through a spinal cord injury, so much of the focus is on the patient. Who's there to hold you in your darkest moments?
I mean, we're really lucky that we have a really good community. We have really good friends and family. And they helped a lot. So it was COVID, I couldn't even meet with them, but we used to meet up in the garden. Like, 2 of my 2 best friends used to come and visit, or just... I used to talk to people. I was so busy because I was working and then visiting him that I used to catch up with them in the car. I used to phone them on my way to the spinal unit and my way back. And then went home, they were really supportive and really practically supportive. I mean, if you think about that sports day, from that day on, you had a group of guys around you. Everyone was congratulating you for being home. It was really, really supportive environment.
Because my friend gave us that Volvo, do you remember?
Yeah, your friend literally gave him his old car.
Oh, Volvo, yes.
Because it was the right height to transfer into.
Yeah, transferring in and out.
But I think our belief system and our faith helped us a lot as well. Just knowing that, I suppose for us, life is a test. And I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to be tested. But we have a strong belief that if you're given a test, you're also given the way to manage it. And so we were just looking for, okay, I know I've been given this. I know I can manage it. I've got to look for that resilience within me and take the help that is offered.
Well, that's a task in itself, isn't it? Being willing and able to accept help in your moment of need.
I have to say, I'm not that good at that.
She's not very good at all.
But to be fair, I mean, people gave me no choice. Like, people were bringing food round, do you remember, all the time?
Yeah.
And
we had lots of visitors. I mean, I had a lot of social capital. Huh?
We lost that recently.
Well, people can coast.
I need more food.
Yeah, no. I think there's a lot of support, and I think in a way that made it easier. In a way, we had a lot of support from our friends, and also from my colleagues and so on. So actually, the environment around you makes a big difference. I realise how privileged I am because not everyone has that support, and the guy I was with, at the Spinal unit hasn't had the same experience, and it is a constant reminder that that's kind of been part of my drive to come back and help those who aren't as privileged as myself. And so that's been a big driver to sort of be the Spinal Injuries ambassador, be a trustee on the Ratio Gardens, do all that sort of stuff for the vulnerable people of our spinal injury community. And so I think the first that's the thing. The funny thing is, look, you don't never know where life is going to go, irrespective, whether you've got a spinal injury or not. But life will change, and for people going through that initial stage, the only thing I can say is there's so many different chapters along that journey, and there's always so many different doors that open or close, and so it's just another chapter in your life. That's the way I kind of see it. Your book's not written. The end conclusion is we're all going to die, but the actual each chapter is different, and so with each chapter there's always So I've been very fortunate. Opportunities come, you take those opportunities, and then your life changes. But actually, it's just a different way of doing things.
I think we tend, that there have been a lot of hardships with it. There's no question, but it's also been. We've noticed how good it's been for us as a couple, but also for our kids to see difference and to learn about helping others and not just being completely selfish because they are teenagers. To know that their dad can ask for help and that they can help him. It's an important value, I think, for us. Yeah. But it's also important modelling for them because they probably didn't see their dad as someone who would ask for help before.
I have no qualms for asking.
Yeah,
I ask help for everyone, random strangers, everyone. Can you do this for me? And the incredible thing is, what I've discovered is how good people are. The only negative time was one guy who was drunk in Sheffield, thought for some reason I was trying to cross the road. I wasn't. And so it became this fight as the cars were coming on there. Apart from that one instant, I'd say people have been incredibly positive. And so people are always happy to help. And I think sometimes in the disabled community of spinal cord injury, people get very cross when people try and help. And I frame it a different way. Sometimes people try to push you, and sometimes that's fine. Okay, so it's resting my shoulders. So I kind of look for the positive in it, and I think that's been my way of coping. And I think what spinal injury does is it potentiates what your personality is like. And if you've been positive, it makes you more positive. But I think if you've been negative, it'll probably make you more negative. But if you dwell, my theory is the brain's so powerful. If you've got positive thoughts, it's almost like positive hormones, neurotropics are given. If you have negative thoughts, so it's the same way. If I have a negative thought, my neuropathic pain gets worse. Yeah, it just does, right? And so I think it's really important that you just want to look. The way I cope is I always try and look at the positive side of things, and it does make it a lot easier.
Those positive thoughts, they do lead to good experiences, which leads to that dopamine hit, and it just naturally keeps evolving and growing, and you can see that just shines straight out of you there, Mo. And with that, you was able to return to work. So 18 months after your injury, you rolled back into the QE, but not as a patient.
Yeah.
And you went in there as an employee. How did that feel in that moment?
Yeah, no, it was an amazing moment because I think what it is when you go through that spinal injury, one of the things I can't describe this feeling of is hollowness. You lose that sense of purpose. And I hadn't realized being a surgeon kind of defined me. I hadn't really appreciated it because you don't appreciate, having been a surgeon for so many years, you don't really appreciate, okay, you enjoy your work, you love your work, but I didn't realize how important it was for me. And so when you have that spinal injury, you lose that sense of purpose, and I felt hollow on the inside. So to come back, I was so happy.
I think a lot of people didn't believe that you would come back. And do you remember when you were first home, you said to me, "Oh, I'm going to be back." What did you say, by the end of the year or something?
I don't know.
He thought he'd be back within 6 months, and I knew that he wouldn't be back in 6 months. But I was like, yeah, okay, let's just let's take it in stages. But I didn't ever say no way are you back in 6 months.
Yeah.
Because I knew that
it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah,
I mean,
he realised that in his own time.
Yeah, I mean,
but I didn't ever think that you wouldn't go back either. I always knew you'd go back.
The outcome doesn't matter. It's a journey along the way. And so instead of focusing on, so when it came to a year, I thought I'd be back. I was way off, and that was fine. I said, I'm going to extend it by another 6 months. It's not a big deal. The thing about spinal cord injury, which I found very challenging, was fatigue. It's really weird. As a medic, as a surgeon, I used to get up like 5 a.m, go to the gym, work all day to 8 o'clock, 6-7 days a week. I was never tired. And when I was explaining to people the fatigue, as a medic, I was explaining things like fatigue. What do you mean by fatigue? I swear to God, the fatigue is something where people don't understand when you have a spinal. The fatigue is just on the next level, and to experience that on the other side, now I understand when people say they're really fatigued. And it took a long time. I still got fatigue, but actually it's about managing that fatigue. It's understanding how far you can push it, and how to sort of manage that.
Because I think when you first came back part-time, you thought that was a step towards increasing your hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think
you come back from work looking like you've done a few rounds with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
I mean, you just, especially when you're operating.
Yeah, the operator is probably the hardest, but it's kind of like doing a marathon each week. But actually, the way I kind of see it is that if you want to achieve something amazing, you've got to have to accept there's a pro and a con to it. But some of the challenges is actually how people perceive disabled people. And so I've had lots of patients, a group of patients will be like, they leave the consultation and they'll ring the specialist nurse and say, well, he's disabled, can you do the operation? And I always say to them, look, if you're not happy, I'm happy to refer you elsewhere, it's not a problem. And it's kind of on an individual level, breaking those barriers down, or you're about to consent the patient, you can see the fear in the eyes. And I always sort of joke to them and say, look, it's okay, I've done the operation 100 times. But then on an individual level, you change that mind. But it's actually amazing how, I think some of the difficulties how people perceive those in wheelchairs, or how often you get ignored. And it can be frustrating, and developing small man syndrome, because I used to be 6 foot before, now I'm short. So that's a bit irritating. Now I actually understand, I said, why do people get small man syndrome? I think I now can understand. You spend your whole life looking up. Life never stays the same. And for those going through a difficult time, there will be better times, but it just takes time. And I think the biggest part of the journey is patience. You've got to have patience. And also gratitude, because you can be in a worse situation. So every day I wake up, I'm like, thank God I've still got my hands, my brain, amazing family, amazing friends. What is it not to be grateful for? We're still, anyone in the UK is still in the top 10% of the world's population in terms of wealth, and that's the truth of it. But we always kind of look at the things we don't have. But, I think my access made me appreciate how fortunate I am. I don't think I kind of understood that as well as do now. And so every day, is a blessing, really.
Did you experience any discrimination from colleagues, or from anything that was really out and out blatant, just inappropriate?
Yeah, there was one of my colleagues who was, kept going on about me going on the on-call road, which would be very difficult to do as a surgeon, as an emergency, because, trying to get in and out of the car, or trying to transfer into my special wheelchair if it's an emergency operation wouldn't be possible. So there'll always be some negativity there. You just got to sort of say, well, look, that's their problem, not my problem. From the clinical point of view, I think it's been really positive. And I think in a way it shows people out there you can achieve a high functioning job, or you can achieve stuff, and that hope's really important. And I had this message from this lady whose child, is got a spinal injury, but she says, look, it's given him hope, and actually that's what it's all about, is to show people you can do this. In the same way I say, look, just because I've gone back to work doesn't mean people have to, because it's very hard. Like, I say it's kind of climbing that Everest. You just got to take one step at a time, and it takes a very, very long time.
And everyone's mountain is different, right?
Yeah.
Like what their achievement is, can be, is different. But I think we're in a society where it's almost like there's a rationing of sympathy, like there's a rationing of resource. And so because people feel so under pressure, like they're not getting, and people are not getting what they need. I mean, it's outrageous how poor the resources are for wheelchair users, and how much people have to fight, even to get a most basic wheelchair provision and so on. It's so terrible that it's almost like they then feel they can't sympathise with other people, and they can't be sort of a celebratory of other people's achievements. I think that's where this sort of spiral comes from. And certainly from a partner or family perspective, there's definite invisibility of family members that can be really undermining. And definitely that was the hardest thing. The hardest thing for me wasn't his spinal injury. Although, it's very difficult to see him in pain, very difficult to see him struggling. It was the inadequacy of the system to support. And that's exhausting. When you're trying to advocate for someone, when he was still in hospital or when he'd just come home, I was the one trying to get, a decent wheelchair for him from wheelchair services, where they were saying, oh, well, there's a wait, but we won't tell you how long the wait is. And you need an assessment, even though the spinal injury unit has already given you an assessment. And it was just circular. You're like, well, if you could tell me how long the wait is, I'll know whether to spend all my money on something or not. But they're, oh, no, we can't. I mean, it's just all that kind of ludicrousness, fighting for a standing frame that took months, all of these kind of things, small things that everyone needs. It's exhausting. And then when you've done all that fighting, and I remember going to the meeting, having had to make complaints to get to this stupid wheelchair assessment, and they went around the room, everyone introducing themselves. They literally went past me like I was invisible. And I'm, as you can probably see, a fairly assertive person. I don't normally, and I was just silenced in that space, having been the person who'd done all that fighting.
What did that feel like?
It felt utterly undermining. And throughout this process, there's very rarely been a time that I can share what it felt like for me. And that, in a way, that's fair enough, because the person who's injured, their experience is primary and should always be primary. But actually, I think what we've learned is that your quality of life is partly, at least, dependent on what I've been able to provide, together, and we've been able to be kind of a team together. That's totally undermined by the system. That's as if it doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, there's a lot of work that has been done as well. I do sort of joke. I actually said the real heroine's my wife, not me.
That's not a joke.
What joke?
That's not a joke, but that's actually the truth, because in a way she's done so much. It was a lot harder for her to sort out all the different things, deal with the children. She's had far more on her plate. Whereas the sympathy comes to me, as the disabled guy. And my poor wife's done all the hard miles, and I can see how it puts such a strain on the relationship. Because
but it is that kind of
dynamic changes.
There could be sympathy for everyone.
Yeah, no, of course.
It's very strange that it feels like it's a competition for it.
Yeah, and I think to be honest, it didn't really affect me, that whole PIP thing. I was very upset about it. Not for me personally, for all the vulnerable people I know with spinal cord injury, and it was really tragic, of all things, really, for the current government to do that. And I just thought about all those people who can't advocate for themselves, who don't have a hard as nails wife doing all the hard miles for you. It's a nightmare. And so it's good that spinal injuries had pressurized them to at least reverse some of those, but I'm not sure if they've completely reversed all of those changes. And it kind of comes down to this whole thing about vulnerability, because up to this point, before my accident, I never felt vulnerable at all in my entire life. Honestly, it was really weird. And then to feel that emotion of vulnerability, I mean, it was, and you still get these moments of vulnerability in a wheelchair. So there's certain things I don't like, for example, now dogs, because I went to see a friend of mine who has a big Alsatian, and it was quite an aggressive dog. And I actually feel vulnerable amongst dogs because it's about the same sort of height. And so you know, and before that, I never ever felt any form of vulnerability. And the other day, I was on a train yesterday, and the train stopped, and you know, I wanted to get off because there was a 2-hour delay, but I just couldn't get out really because, you know, and then I had to sort of ask passengers on there to come and try and find me some help. The first lady wasn't that helpful. The second, you know, she went out and talked, but she didn't tell him that I needed help to get out. So I had to ask the second person, and he kindly went out and sorted it out. And there's that kind of feeling that I need to get off the train to get back home kind of scenario. And then you don't ever have that prior to my accident, that kind of sense of vulnerability. I mean, have you found that yourself, both of you?
Yes, absolutely. And I think as society's changing and is becoming more divisive, I think it is because as myself, 22 years injured, I'm now starting to feel a bit more vulnerable when I'm pushing around city centres and I'm seeing people staring at me more. And how have you found that? I mean, as you say, you were a 6-foot man walking around as this professional surgeon, and now as a wheelchair user.
I think it is interesting. I suppose, as my wife says, I'm kind of immune to some of the stuff. People can say some really gnarly stuff to me. I kind of ignore it. I don't recognise it.
He goes around in this happy little bubble, and I'll be with him, and I'm like, I can see there is definitely, I mean, there is a change in society. There's no question, and I guess, you know, as a Muslim couple, we feel that as well from both sides, and it seems to be there's a sort of harsher environment where people feel like it's okay to be ruder and less tolerant, and that's affecting a lot of different communities, I think. But my husband deals with that by just putting up this barrier of not noticing.
No, he's not noticing.
So I'll be with him and I'll get really annoyed by someone's
I was going to say, how do you cope with it? What?
Yeah, I tend to get really cross and I will respond at times as well, but he'll be off when he've even noticed.
No, but I think what it is look, I think the thing is, my sort of philosophy is you only have so much energy. It's either positive or negative. You've got to let go of a lot of things, you know, because it's very, very easy to get frustrated with a lot of things. And, you know, when the time comes to stand up, I'll stand up. I remember being in Euston Station and the guy goes, no, you 15 minutes before the train, you should come earlier. So you need to catch the next one. I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to catch that train and you're going to sort it out. Yeah, and then after that, whenever I got to Euston Station, he was actually fine. Because he was surprised. I was like, no, this is it. I'm catching that train and you're going to have to sort that out. That's the end of that. I'm not having this discussion with you. And that's the problem. Sometimes people feel they can have just because you're in a wheelchair. And I very rarely sort of kind of do that kind of stuff because generally speaking, the experience tends to be relatively, you know, it tends to be positive. You are right. You do get weird interactions. I remember, so I was coming a couple of years ago, and you're right. I don't normally go out in the evening in the city centre. There's always a few drunk people, but people make So I was going up. It's actually not that far from here. It's probably maybe a couple of minutes from here. I was sort of wheeling somewhere and started talking to some random guy, and he says, "Oh right," it was just having a very friendly chat. It was a guy in his 20s, and he's like, you know, oh, you know, it all sounded really positive. Oh, so you know, any pointers to me as a young man? I said, look, you just got to keep positive and so on. As he went off, he said, yeah, not lose your legs as well. As he went off, and exactly, yeah. So I was a bit disappointed with the guy, and I remember telling you about that. And then what I realised is, look, you can't affect how other people behave. If people behave in a negative fashion or a rude fashion, that's on them. Yeah, you know. And if he felt better by saying that, it didn't really bother me. Yeah. And, you know, all I wanted to say to him was, well, losing your legs is not a choice. But it ran off by that point. And so you're right, you will always get these sort of negative comments from people, but you've just got to make that decision not to allow it to affect you. Or otherwise you're never going to go out. You're never going to do those things, you know. And that's the key thing, is constantly saying to yourself, look, I need to push myself out of the comfort zone. So that my sort of mentality is I've got to constantly do things that I don't want to do, because being in that comfortable place means you can do more and more and more. And mentally, don't see myself as a disabled person. And I think that outlook's really important.
Yeah, I've always said I'm not disabled. I'm just inconvenienced by stairs.
Yeah.
That's how I've always lived.
Stairs are a nightmare, yeah. I'm trying to learn. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, I need to get, sort of learn that next step of going down those stairs. But you just got to find the right set of stairs. The problem is they've got to be just right in order to sort of bounce down. Because a lot of stairs just aren't
Looks like it fills you with dread.
He will. He was at a party when they stupidly arranged it up some stairs that they hadn't told him about, and he just got off the wheelchair and crawled up the stairs.
I mean, it's problem solving, isn't it? It's problem solving. I mean, look, I think the way I see those sort of things is actually it's a problem. Let's solve the problem. Yeah, look, it's not ideal, but look, I've got two choices: either go home or I don't go home. And people will always help you take the wheelchair up and wheelchair down.
He also cleverly planned by having 3 children, one of whom is 6'2" and quite strong.
Oh, that helps.
So that helps. That was good organisation.
Yeah, no. But I think the thing is, people will generally help you. Generally, I mean, I'd say overall it's been a positive experience, even with the negative issues. And I think this is a shame because people are focusing on so much negative, whether it's the Motability scheme and things like that, and that, lessons are never learnt. It's like that throughout history. When things go bad, you always blame the disadvantaged people for the cause of your problems, whether it's immigrants, disabled people are taking the money off the state, etc. The real problems, really, we know are bigger than that, aren't they? I mean, these kind of strategic problems from various different governments and what the problems are.
One way that helps me, and with all kinds of discrimination, is thinking, well, I'd rather know who these idiots are. Do you know what I mean? It's like if I was just walking around and unidentifiably just like everyone else, just like the kind of white average mobile person who's walking around without a disability, then I wouldn't know who the idiots are. This has given me like an ability to kind of to be aware of the real world. And the real world is that there are some nasty people out there, but we're just not going to let them get to us too much.
So 4 or 5 years on from your injury and a new normal has set in, how are you both getting along? Are you back as being the unit you was before? Is it a new unit? Is it a new normality? Tell us.
Yeah, I think unit, I mean, I don't know, I'll see what my wife says, but I'll tell you what my perspective, which may give a different one. Actually, strength, I think, I'll call it the gift of adversity. Yeah, so adversity is a gift. Honestly, it really is a gift. And like for me, I don't think I've ever been happier. I realize what I have, an amazing family. The relationship, is super tight. I do feel for my wife because I do put a lot of pressure on her, I'll be honest with you. And she knows it, I know it. But I think the whole family unit is definitely stronger, and I think it's, if I think back, I would not have imagined the way I would be 5 years on. And I'm in a much better place than I would have thought, even though I'm a positive guy 5 years ago. And that's the beauty about life. But let's ask the Home Minister and see what she thinks.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. We are definitely, I think, managing to survive something like this together definitely strengthens you. You learn different things about each other, and you have a increased respect for what the other person has been able to manage. So I think we have more respect for each other. We have more compassion for each other. And we look out for each other in different ways than we did before. And then that's got to benefit the kids as well, right? They've been part of that journey, absolutely. And they've been developing and learning and becoming stronger people through that as well. And it's like we're better as a unit, but we're also really good now at recognizing each other's needs. So I will encourage you to do the things that help you to be strong without me or with me. Like we do stuff together as a family, but also we do stuff separately, and I make sure that I prioritize, the things that keep me mentally and emotionally strong as well. My friendship group, my running, my gym, those kind of things. And my time away even, because I need that too. And so we've got a really good pattern now where we're resilient because we're prioritizing each other's needs, I think.
Did you ever have to have any of those difficult conversations where you've got your needs pulling you in that direction, you've got your needs pulling you in that direction, and then it's like, how do we then make sure the communication is there to balance those needs?
I think that is solved by not allowing it to become, he's being selfish, I'm being selfish. It's externalizing the problem and accepting that there is, life is really busy, and this is a sort of extra stress that's been given to us. It's neither of our fault. And then we're pretty good at compromising now, much more than we used to.
Yeah,
I say we.
Yeah.
He's much compromises more than he used to.
Yeah, and I think so. I mean, I think in a way, I was so driven. I'm still very driven, but I was very driven in a slightly different way. I was kind of extremely goal orientated, and I had a vision of what I was going to do, and I had all these plans and so on. And perhaps at a cost of everything, really. But in a way, that kind of single-minded drive helped me through my spinal cord injury in terms of constantly looking after my health. There's so many things to do, and so that's kind of helped in that way. But actually, having that period of vulnerability, that difficulties, allowed me to see different things. And, I saw a joke to my wife, I feel all these emotions I never felt before. And so, when she says mean things, I could feel it before. It's like water off a duck's back. So in a way, it's been really positive. But the challenges continue. There's different challenges, and you just have to box and cox as and when these happen. Like recently, I was diagnosed with osteoporosis. And I was a bit frustrated because I'd done the stand-in with a standing frame. But, like I say, it's a gift that gives giving. And so I reframed. I was like, "You're a lucky guy. They've diagnosed it early. So you'll be fine." And so, no matter how much you swim, like the duck swims under the water, it is still a challenging injury, And there's so many facets to it, like the nerve, the bladder, the bowel, and that's never going to change. But actually, you learn to live with it better. Yeah, you learn to get on with your life in spite of that, And so you find different pleasures that you didn't have before. And so I'd say that with hardship always comes ease, and we're going through, I'd say, 5 years on, almost 5 years on, it's been really positive.
What would you like to say to each other, if you could, about what the future looks like?
I'm the eternal optimist. The future's always bright.
I think if we carry on listening to each other in the way that we do now, and being able to face the challenges, rather than, I think maybe before your accident we'd be so busy we'd just avoid any difficult conversations. But I think now we face challenge together, and I know there will be more challenges, because spinal injury, as you get older, and as I get older and less able to help you, perhaps, it would be naive to think that it's going to be straightforward. But also, I think when you've gone through something as big as this, you sort of feel like you've got those skills to manage difficulty. So I feel like whatever life throws at us next, we've developed a lot so that we'll be able to manage it.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Yeah, no, it's definitely been very positive.
That's beautiful. You're both incredibly powerful, inspiring, encouraging, and thank you for your time and energy today.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Didn't Plan on This. If so, please like, comment and share.
If you or someone you know is living with a spinal cord injury and they need support, the Spinal Injuries Association is here for you. Our vision is a fulfilled life for everyone living with spinal cord injury. If you'd like to support us or find out more about the vital work that we do across the UK, please visit our website at spinal.co.uk.